When I was younger, I often wondered just how such things as slavery and genocide could be justified by racism and bigotry. I wondered how regular people could be so stupid and cruel, and why everyone did not cry out about it. How could human beings chain up Africans, cram them into tiny spaces in boats, force them to be huddled in their own waste, sick, starving, and beaten, and then subject them to animal-like slavery? I sat in disgust, wondering how a government of people intelligent enough to cross the Atlantic Ocean could be so blind and sick as to reward people with money to murder American Indians and chop off the top of their heads like trophies. It's 2007, it's almost 2008, and we still have indirect slavery, though it can no longer be practiced openly, like selling a car or a horse, like it once was. The age of ethnic cleansing and colonialism is behind us, right? Well, mostly. Most of the world has ended colonial practices from 100 years ago, but not in Israel. As Jimmy Carter put it, I equate the ejection of the Palestinians from their previous homes within the state of Israel to the forcing of the Lower Creek Indians from Georgia land, where our family farm is now located. They had been moved out west to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears to make room for our white ancestors. That's on page 27 and 8 of Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. It just makes me sick. This stuff is happening right now. It's not just something we read about in the past and say, I used to wonder how could there have been so many Nazis, and then there were these psychological tests showing that it could have happened anywhere, that anybody brainwashed into it. There's a certain type of authoritarian mindset that just wants to obey no matter what they're told, and it wasn't anything specific to Germany or anything. It was just anyone. And I've always thought, no, there's no excuse for that. I mean, a free-thinking person is just going to reject that kind of stuff. But worse yet is how the media will not acknowledge this. Average Americans are totally in the dark about Israel's racial colonies. Most don't know that Jews and Arabs cannot go to the same high schools or even drive on the same roads. A modern army attacks civilians, sometimes just randomly launching grenades into neighborhoods, and sometimes they use helicopters shooting rockets into homes and automobiles. And they get away with it without one word of criticism or even acknowledgement from the U.S. media. Palestinians have their homes demolished and are forced to leave or die. And their homes are then replaced with U.S. paid for Jew-only settlements. However, if you point out this fascism, somehow it's you who is racist for not supporting the Zionist claim that ethnic cleansing is okay because God promised them the land to His people, the Jews. Never mind Muslims controlling Jerusalem from 1187 to the end of World War I. Zionists even go so far as to tell you that Palestine never existed. Look at a map. What we see in Israel is an occupation that is so horrible that Americans cannot believe it. The reason is that if it was really so bad, there is no way it could be covered up. That if it was truly an occupation, it would be reported on the news. Well, it is on the news, just not American news. The fact that the news can filter reality in this way is very dangerous. This is why the Niger forgeries weren't revealed. The news won't reveal this huge scandal because it is a concrete case to show that the government, along with the complicit media, lied. Not made mistakes, but lied about Iraq's supposed weapons of mass destruction. And I'm going to cut about 3 pages here. It just goes over the Office of Special Plans and some PNAC authors and Niger forgeries, Flame Affair, and how all that ties together. I have to keep this within the YouTube time frame. Israel was the first country ever to use depleted uranium, which kills indiscriminately and even affects unborn children. They have openly admitted to using DU in Lebanon, which was reported in Israeli papers, as well as using cluster bombs and landmines. I do not think that Israel is protecting its security interests by invading nations and committing their own acts of terrorism. The Gaza Strip has been reduced to prison-like conditions, thanks to Israel's collective punishment and total disregard for international laws. And remember that the Lebanese invasion was beta tested on Gaza. They beta tested the PR story about the kidnapped soldiers, using the word kidnap rather than captured. First in Gaza, they invaded Gaza, blew up infrastructure, did billions in damage, and then they did the exact same thing in Lebanon with the same story, kidnapped soldiers, and then they went on targeting civilians, blowing up whatever they wanted. And Hezbollah handed their ass to them too. It was wonderful. Well, that part of it anyway. Israel is openly building what Senator Hillary Clinton calls a security fence, but is in reality an apartheid wall. First off, the wall, and it certainly is a wall, is not even on the green line. It is not on Israel's border. It cuts deep into the West Bank, effectively creating a land grab by cutting off a portion of Palestine from the rest of it. They are sandwiching a large swath of territory between the Israeli border and the apartheid wall that is already being peppered with racial/ethnic settlements of religious fanatics who hold the ridiculous belief that God gave them the land they are stealing and murdering people to take. If there is to be security, Israel must end its brutal occupation and return to the Oslo Accords and the two-state solution. The U.S. is not going to stop aid to Israel because it is too large of a cash cow for the MIC. However, churches and universities could divest from the companies involved in the occupation. They won't, though. The same way that we had a divestment campaign targeting the apartheid state of South Africa. In general, Christians overwhelmingly want to divest from Israel, but their leadership won't do it because they are making far too much money. Actually, overwhelmingly, if you ask Christians that, they might say that, but the majority of them don't even have a clue what their church spends money on. What I am asking you is to bring this dialogue about Israel to the floor and force the issue beyond the pro-Israel mantras and baseless accusations of anti-Semitism. Talk with your family and friends. It is not wrong to oppose people who poison others with DU and who murder an indigenous population for the sake of land supposedly granted by God. It sounds a lot like what the U.S. did to American Indians, killing people for land and claiming it was manifest destiny. The U.S. needs to redeem itself from its most regretful and horrible history by supporting the Palestinian people. Contact your reps. They might ignore you. They will ignore you. But at least give them a guilty conscience.